This episode was recorded and produced on the unceded territories of the Coquitlam Nation, with contributions from candidates living on the territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. It's March 25th, 2025, and there are 11 days until the Vancouver Council by-elections. This is the Cambie Report, and I'm Ian Bushfield. On today's special by-election episode, I'm turning the mics over to some of the candidates seeking your votes on April 5th. I reached out to the 7 candidates running for the 5 major electoral organizations, asking them to submit a clip answering 4 questions for you. I gave each party up to 6 minutes, so ABC and team were offered 3 minutes per candidate. We received responses from everyone except Ralph Kaisers with ABC and Annette Riley from the Greens. Specifically, I asked the candidates to introduce themselves and say why they're running for council and what are the big issues of their campaign. I asked them how they will work to make housing affordable. And finally, I asked each for a Vancouverata to end their clip. I've ordered these by who got their clips in first, but before I turn it over to them, remember to go to patreon.com/CambieReport to support the show, and you can find more information about all these candidates on each of the parties' websites. And make sure on April 5th, if you reside in Vancouver and are eligible to vote, to cast your ballot.
Hi Cambie Report listeners, I'm Lucy Maloney and I'm the One City candidate for City Council in the upcoming by-election. I'm originally from Melbourne, Australia, and I've also lived in a small rural town in Western Australia, Singapore and Santiago, Chile, and we've lived in Vancouver for about 8 years. I'm an environmental lawyer. I worked in-house at the Environment Protection Authority in Melbourne for a decade and then in business. I'm a parent of 2 VSB students and I've spent a lot of time fighting for safe streets in this city. Your listeners probably know me best as a road safety advocate and spokesperson for Vision Zero Vancouver. And I'm especially passionate about making streets safe for kids to walk and bike to and from school. I'm really proud to be able to point to physical traffic calming infrastructure on streets around Vancouver that I've helped make happen. You'll often hear me say that we know what works to build safer streets, we just need to do it. And I want to bring that mindset to City Hall for safe streets and affordable housing. Vancouver's housing crisis affects most people living here, and my family was rent-evicted, and while we were fortunate enough to be able to find housing that was still in downtown Vancouver, it was 2 kilometres away from my kids' school. So we decided to bike, and the dangerous traffic situation around my kids' school was just unacceptable considering the vast majority of West End families use active transport to get to and from school already. And that whole experience brought home just how important good municipal government is. If you have good leadership, you can have safe streets and affordable housing. And if you have bad leadership, you don't. And we have bad leadership. When he actually shows up to work, Ken Sim makes decision after decision that hurt people. He hasn't fulfilled his promises because he keeps getting distracted by things like Bitcoin and trying to reverse the ban on gas heating in new buildings. And while homelessness is up, he's tearing homes down. He wastes time attacking the Integrity Commissioner and Park Board over politics instead of trying to make this city more affordable, and he's broken so many promises. He promised us 100 new nurses to actually help people suffering from health challenges and delivered only 12. I want to continue the work of One City Councillor Christine Boyle, who left an incredibly impressive track record of achievements given she was the only councillor from our party. I want to expose Ken Sim for his broken promises and fight him when he tries to do more damage, and to show Vancouver that a kinder, safer, more just and more equitable city is possible, and that's why I'm running. How will we make housing affordable? Well, it won't be a surprise to your listeners or really anyone who's tried to find housing recently that we have a profound shortage in Vancouver. We need a lot more of it, of all kinds: market housing, social housing, shelter rate housing, supportive housing. Ken Sim might think he's solving our problems with his task force barrage directed at the downtown east side, but you can't barrage your way out of a housing crisis. You can only house your way out of it. Now, drilling down to specifics, I believe that we need a lot more housing, but it doesn't need to be all in one place. In 2022, one city ran on legalising small apartment buildings and corner stores everywhere, 6 floors and corner stores. I want to make sure we have affordable and accessible housing choices in every neighbourhood of our city. I also think that as we build, we can't let anyone get left behind, especially people in affordable rental apartments. That's why I want to strengthen our tenant protection citywide and see them actually enforced. To do that, as my very first motion, I'll move to bring back the Vancouver Renter Office that Ken Sim abolished. I want to have enhanced enforcement powers to ensure that tenants can have confidence in our protections and know where they can turn to. We can do so much better than Ken Sim. We can build affordable apartment buildings in Shaughnessy, which has some of the lowest land values in the city per square foot. We can ensure that tenants are protected. And that starts with sending 2 progressives to council on April the 5th. And it continues with kicking Ken Sim out of the Mayor's office in 2026. That's why I'm asking for your listeners' support. My favourite bit of Vancouver trivia? Well, I'm going to do the classic politician move of not answering the question asked and instead talk about my favourite, very important piece of Vancouver history, which is the story of the militant mothers of Raymer Overpass in East Vancouver. So in 1971, women from the Raymer housing project, mostly single mothers, blockaded the railway tracks near their homes in a fight for their children's safety. The railway tracks cross one block route between Raymer Place Housing Project and Admiral Seymour Elementary School. These women fought governments, powerful businessmen, and literally stood on the train tracks staring down trains until they capitulated and agreed to build an overpass. When parents like me advocate for safer streets for our kids, we are standing on the shoulders of giants.
Hi, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Colleen Hardwick. I was born, raised, and educated in the city of Vancouver. My husband and I live in Kitsilano. I'm the mother of 2 and now a grandmother of 2. In terms of credentials, I spent 4 years on city council between 2018 and 2022. My background academically is in geography, political science, and urban planning. My late father, Walter Hardwick, taught urban geography at UBC, and he was one of the founders of the original team. I was 10 years old when he was first elected to city council. So needless to say, I have a deep personal understanding of the city. My professional background is as a serial entrepreneur. I was a pioneer in the local film industry and a trailblazer as a woman entrepreneur. I have managed complex organizations with many multi-million-dollar budgets.
So why are you running for council, and what are the big issues of your campaign?
I'm running for council because I feel a strong sense of responsibility to do what I can to ensure that future generations will be able to afford to live in Vancouver. I understand the business of the city and how we got to where we are today. And we need to course correct from the damage that has been done going back to 2008, the financial crash, and the election of vision. Structural errors made back then continue to plague our city today, and sadly were perpetuated under Kennedy Stewart and now Ken Sim and ABC. The number one issue is housing affordability. Ever since the city hitched its wagon to the property development industry, it has effectively been selling zoning to generate revenue to fund its expansion. This addiction has had the negative impact of inflating land values exponentially. Yet the city continues to steamroll existing affordable rental housing through upzoning, particularly within the Broadway Plan area. Local democracy has been sacrificed in the name of property development, but also threatened by the abolition of the Park Board. These are thinly veiled attempts to sideline the public in favor of those who stand to profit the most. Community planning is part of Vancouver's livable city legacy, and restoring actual planning is mission critical to the future of our city.
How will you work to make housing affordable?
I'll work to make housing more affordable by first pausing rampant upzoning to slow land inflation. The good news is we have tons of existing zone capacity to grow into. What we need to do is streamline the process and make it less expensive to develop.
So, what's your favorite bit of Vancouver trivia?
The catalyst for the creation of the original team was a proposal to build a freeway through historic Chinatown. And they beat it.
Hello there, my name is Sean Orr. I'm a candidate with COPE for the by-election. I am a dishwasher, I am a landscaper, a recent graduate of SFU in geography and political science, and I'm also a writer. I've been writing about Vancouver for the last 20 years, and that ties into why I'm running is because the things I've been writing about since 2005 are the exact same things that we're seeing today, the same problems, the housing crisis, the climate crisis, the drug poisoning epidemic, the downtown east side, and many other things. And what we're seeing with current council, the lack of integrity, the anti-democratic processes, the increasing of the police budget, rewarding his developer friends like Chip Wilson, carving up the downtown east side, and just his failure on housing, his failure on so many fronts. But he is successful at one thing. I keep pointing this out. He's the only mayor ever to raise taxes and cut services at the same time. So I'm running to be a megaphone for social movements and make Ken Sim's life difficult over these next 18 months. So COPE has a proud history of fighting for housing, fighting for affordability, renters. Yeah, I was proud to join COPE for that reason. There's a lot of things that we can do at the city level to fight for affordable housing. For me, the biggest issue is closing the loopholes that landlords use to jack up rents. We could do that with by closing loopholes in the tenant relocation policy that we've seen around the Broadway plan, but also loopholes that allow between tenancies the landlord to jack up the rent to whatever they like, whatever their market will bear. Loopholes around if one member of the lease moves out and they have to renegotiate a lease, things like that. Also, we need to build public housing on public land for the public good. The city owns a lot of land, and we absolutely can be in the business of building housing. What Ken Sim is doing now, he's in the business of market rental in order to pad city revenues. To me, that doesn't make any sense because there's no incentive to keep rents down if it's going to revenue. So a public housing developer funded in part by a mansion tax. We can end homelessness in 4 years with a 1% tax on houses over $5 million. Another one is to stop dem evictions. We absolutely have to fight for renters in that regard. Another thing we can do is what Montreal does, which is the right of first refusal. And that is the right of the city to have the first choice of buying a building if it goes on the market. This will go a long ways to protect a lot of our beautiful apartments around the Broadway plan, for example, 4-story walk-ups. We could also do things like turn it into a co-op or a community land trust. And speaking of co-ops, we need to be re-signing the leases on all the beautiful co-ops across our city and just building more. South Falls Creek should be a model for the rest of the city. It's mixed incomes, walkable. It's really a gem of Vancouver. We need to protect not only those, but build more across the city. Well, my favorite bit of Vancouver trivia would have to be essentially the founding of Vancouver as an inside real estate deal. Van Horn had with him a letter saying that the Transcontinental Railway was actually going to be the terminus was going to be in Vancouver instead of Port Moody. A lot of people had already bought up land around Port Moody thinking that was going to be the terminus, but he had the secret letter and he shared it with 5 prominent Victoria businessmen who bought up all the land around, and they essentially, part of the deal was offering CPR most of the West End. So it's an interesting bit of trivia because it kind of explains a lot of this kind of east-west tension in our city, this dynamic, because the landowners wanted to develop east and the CPR had more money and bigger pockets and they wanted to develop, and that's where downtown ended up being, is where their land was. They built an opera house, they built the Hotel Vancouver. Yeah, and to me it's just a perfect metaphor that Vancouver was founded as a secret real estate deal.
Hello, I'm Jamie Stein, and I'm proud to be running for Vancouver City Council with ABC Vancouver in the upcoming by-election. As a Vancouver native who's lived across Canada and worked globally, I bring a unique perspective to our city's challenges and opportunities. My professional background spans technology leadership and strategic communications. I've led customer success teams at companies like Hootsuite, Broadband TV, and Taplytics, where I've driven organizational change and built global relationships across more than 15 countries. My journalism training from Ryerson University and my experience as the radio voice of the CFL's Toronto Argonauts has shaped my ability to communicate effectively and build meaningful connections. But what truly drives me is community service. After losing my father to leukemia in 2006, I partnered with Canadian Blood Services to raise $12.5 million to establish Canada's national public cord blood bank. Today, I continue this passion for healthcare advocacy as a board member of CLEAR, Canadians for Leading Edge Alzheimer's Research, where we champion critical Alzheimer's research right here in BC. I was recently selected as a 2024 Wexner Fellow, joining an exclusive cohort of leaders in Vancouver's Jewish community. I live in Vancouver with my wife and 3 children, and their future in this city is at the heart of my commitment to public service. I'm running for council because I believe Vancouver is at a critical juncture that demands experienced leadership with both global perspective and deep local roots. Throughout my career, I've focused on building stronger communities through strategic leadership and meaningful action, whether that's in healthcare advocacy, economic development, or public safety. The big issues driving my campaign align with ABC Vancouver's platform: creating safer streets, addressing housing affordability, and building a more vibrant, sustainable city. Under Mayor Ken Sim's leadership since 2022, we've made significant progress, but I believe there's still important work to be done. My experience leading organizational transformation in the tech sector has taught me how to navigate complex challenges and deliver results. These skills are directly applicable to city governance, where efficiency and innovation are critical. Through my community work, I've developed a deep understanding of the issues that matter to Vancouverites across all neighborhoods. I believe in taking action to build a more prosperous and inclusive society where every resident has access to affordable housing, safe streets, and economic opportunity. Housing affordability is perhaps the most urgent challenge facing our city. The good news is that ABC Vancouver is taking real action to make housing more affordable and get more homes built faster. We've passed a transformative set of housing policies to increase supply, and I'm committed to building on this momentum. Our revolutionary 3331 permit approval framework has been a game changer for us. This means 3 days for a renovation, 3 weeks for a detached home, 3 months for multifamily projects where zoning is in place, and just 1 year for high-rise developments. That's down from the previous 6 years. This isn't just a plan on paper. It's already delivering results. We've sped up approvals for thousands of homes, cutting permitting times by 50 to 70% in many cases. We've eliminated backlogs, reduced red tape, and cut fees, including slashing building permit fees for affordable housing by 20%. The numbers tell the story. Rental housing starts have doubled, the highest rate in Canada. More than 7,000 new rental homes have broken ground since 2023, and we've approved over 14,000 homes since January of 2023. With more than half of Vancouver households being renters, this focus on purpose-built rental housing is essential for meeting the needs of our diverse community. Beyond permitting, we've unlocked up to 75,000 new homes by modernizing view cone policies and passed legislation to enable multiplexes, boost density near transit, and eliminate parking minimums in key areas. But it's important to note that we are not just focused on market housing. We are also committed to delivering 10,000 social, supportive, and nonprofit co-op housing units by 2023, an updated target that will make our city more inclusive and equitable. We're exploring innovative models on city-owned land in partnership with nonprofits to create new co-op housing solutions. We've also implemented Vancouver's first ever seniors housing strategy and seniors housing rezoning policy. This is a historic step in addressing the housing needs of our seniors. We've allocated funds to hire a seniors planner to ensure that our city planning reflects the needs of our seniors community. And for the first time, we're tackling middle income housing, addressing a shortage that fundamentally threatens the city's overall sustainability, livability, and economic growth. I'm proud to say that through these concrete, actionable policies, we're making real change on the housing crisis. It's a massive challenge, but we're going to keep pushing to make Vancouver a place where people can actually afford to call home. Trivia time. Okay, my favorite bit of Vancouver trivia is that Vancouver's Stanley Park is 10% larger than New York's Central Park. That's pretty awesome. And what makes this even more remarkable is that Stanley Park isn't a designated space like Central Park. It's primary old growth forest that was preserved in its natural state when the park was created in 1888. I love this fact because it reflects Vancouver's commitment to preserving natural beauty while building a world-class urban environment. That's a balance I hope to maintain on City Council. And on a personal note, when I returned home to Vancouver in 2014, rediscovering Stanley Park with my children gave me a renewed appreciation for this special place. It's these kind of community spaces that I feel make Vancouver special and worth fighting for. Thanks for listening, and I would be honored to have you vote for ABC Vancouver in the upcoming by-election. Together, I'm hoping we can write an exciting new chapter for our city.
Hey folks, my name is Theodore Abbott and I'm running for Vancouver City Council with Team for a Livable Vancouver. I'm a lifelong Vancouverite, born and raised here in East Van, and for the last year I've been working as a political organizer and a community organizer with Team. I have a background in urban geography and urban studies, and I'm running for City Council because I think the city is at a crossroads. Mayor Ken Sim and the his ABC majority have essentially handed over the future of our city to big developers while ignoring the concerns of the very people who actually live here and the working people of Vancouver. Neighborhood representation has been essentially sidelined. Our city's livability is under threat, and residents feel pretty much locked out of all decision making that are shaping their city at City Hall, and these decisions that are shaping their communities. And I want to change that. This election is about taking back control of our city's future. My campaign is focused on affordability, democracy, and livability. And that means stopping some of this reckless upzoning that drives displacement and trying to restore public input and real city planning at City Hall, and ensuring that development works for the people who live here and not just big, billionaire developers, of which seem to be the ones pulling the strings right now at City Hall. Housing in Vancouver is totally out of control, but I'll tell you this, the answer is not endless luxury towers that do nothing to bring down rents. We need a smarter approach, one that prioritizes co-ops, non-market housing, and the so-called missing middle that actually serves working people. Team supports real affordability, and that means keeping people in their homes instead of displacing them for profit. We need policies that protect renters, encourage innovative housing models, and ensure that new developments can actually provide homes that we actually need, and not just these investment properties and these investment opportunities. One of the biggest things I've been focusing on is the Broadway plan, which is set to, displace thousands of tenants and knock down a bunch of perfectly good, affordable rental stock, market rental stock that's proving so hard to replace. And they're going to put up new high-end towers that no one can afford. And I just think that that's totally egregious and needs to be amended. And we can do the Broadway plan right. Just in its current form, it's not a workable plan. My piece of Vancouver trivia for you is a local one. So Vancouver, in my neighborhood, local to my neighborhood, Vancouver is home to the second oldest skate park in Canada, and that is China Creek Skate Park. China Creek just recently got a new, facelift. The park got renovated, and it's super awesome. So go check out China Creek Skate Park. And the oldest park is over in North Van, but we have the second oldest here in Vancouver. And in closing, I think that I just want to say that, Vancouver needs a real alternative to the current status quo. I'm proud to be running with team, and I'm running to bring back accountable government that really listens to residents, because right now they're being ignored. And on April 5th, I hope I can count on your support. Get out, cast a ballot for Theodore Abbott, and tell your friends to get out and vote, because it's probably going to be pretty low voter turnout in this by-election. Thank you so much for having me on. Take care.